Okay, we move to chapter 2. So method of confirmation, we have 3 topics for discussion. Okay, the user access handling, authentication, user input handling, and attacking control. So the core defense of element, like we have limiting user access to application data and functionality, limiting user input to prevent exploit that use a malform input, frustrating attackers with appropriate behavior when targeted, and administrative monitoring and configuring the application. So what we are going to discuss is actually the access control. The meaning of access control is we limit the users, only an appropriate or authorized users can access. So for example, I would say the simple example is SMAP online that you are using in UTHM. Those are the examples where only UTHM student can access it, or even me as a student advisors, academic advisors cannot access. Okay, it's very limited. Okay, limiting user input to prevent exploit that use malform information. So this is the control mechanism of authentication to make the attackers about behavior when targeted. Okay, so handling user access, we have authentication, session management, and access control. So authentication, the right user, username and password. Session management, cookies. Okay, access control, okay, which part? Okay, for example, if you are an administrator of a website, so you have a different access control or priority compared to the normal user or the end user. So when we are talking about web application, I think you know about this. Okay, there is one side for administration and one side is a normal user. So authentication is very typical. Username and password is most common method. Additional credential and multi-stage login. Okay, if you set your login for Gmail, for example, or for Instagram, the additional credential, that means you need to send a few code to your handphone, a few code to your email addresses, and then we have other credential that to be approved, right, instead of a basic username and password. And then we have a client certificate, smart card, a challenge response token. Okay, the devices. Okay, I'm not bringing that devices with me, especially in internet banking. We have this number, a dongle for accessing a website for e-banking. Okay, and also the self-registration, account recovery, password change, everything. All of this is in the form of authentication. So a bit of hectic. Before this, like a few decades ago, only the username and password, and they don't care about your password. Right now, you need to have like a special character. Okay, must consist of the combination of lowercase and uppercase, number, and any mechanism. So make it hard to break. Okay. So this is a typical login, like I said before. Okay, common login problem, we have a predictable username, password that can be guessed, and maybe defect in the login. Okay, this is the third one. Okay, the third one, defect in login. Normally, a novice developer. Okay, the novice developer somehow lack of this they treat the username and password as a normal form whereby it may be registered in the cookies. Okay, it must be inside the cookies in web browser, so hackers can pull out all this information and store it. So The first one, the predictable username. Okay, for example, like people know you, and for example, like me, okay, Zuraidin. So maybe they try username is Zuraidin, and then maybe they try the password is my birthday, and maybe my daughter's name. So that is not good. Okay, it's not good for login or authentication. Okay, I guess you know this. Okay, session management. Okay, sessions actually a set of data structures that track the state of the user. A token identifies the session, usually a cookies. It can also use hidden form field or the URL query string. So there is a lot of implementation. Maybe you can go for, maybe you can look how Python or how PHP use this session. You may Google. Okay, okay. You need to put a header. Okay, I'm talking about a web page. You need to put a header that refer to the set of a session control mechanism that using a session. So this session is actually communicate between your web browser to the server. So server registered and understand that okay, that session is belong to this IP addresses or belong to this communication. Let's say, for example, someone try to use the same information, okay, inside other location and using other location, different IP addresses. So server maybe discard or cut off this communication and let the user try to log in back. Normally, there is a pop-up message saying that okay, there is some login. Try to log in from this IP address and so on. If you so click OK, if not, cancel. Something like that. And then right now, if you are logged in to a new devices, for example, from laptop to the handphone, I guess Google or maybe the owner of the web application sending the information to your handphone through SMS, through email, as a notification or aware for your security. Okay, session expire. Okay, session expired. I already discussed and talked about it before when you left your laptop in the public using personal computer such as in lab. Okay, and then you need to the web application itself will be logged out automatically, or maybe you have an option to end your session. This is very important. If you are using public computer, for example, in a lab, when you try to log out from using your a lab computer, please kill your session or delete your web browser cookies. That is very important. Okay, if you are accessing a static website or any, you just want to browsing for information, that's okay. If you use that for internet banking, for your what, even SMAP somehow, okay, you don't know. Maybe crackers try to do a joke with your login, or maybe hackers try to gain your information. You don't know. Just keep your information safe. So the common session problem is token are predictable. It's not random. Okay, token are predictable. That means there is an algorithm that can be identified. Standard headers for PHP security is an open source. All of the algorithm is there, so you need to modify that. Okay, and tokens are poorly handled, so an attacker can capture another user's token. So token, when we're talking about token, session, and whatever it is, cookies, it's actually in the forms of digital. In the forms of digital, in the forms of programming or scripting that being floating throughout the network. So please firm with all of this information. I mean, all of this definition, token, session. So you need to know that, okay, before you do a reading, because if you don't know the definition, okay, it is hard for you to understand what we are talking for security of the web application. Okay, access control. Each request must be permitted or denied. Multiple roles within application. Frequent logic errors and flawed assumption. See, um, I guess you already have this. Maybe you have the experience when you try to people send you a URL, a link to a website, and suddenly your friend is can access and you cannot. Okay, why? There is one case. Maybe the location is permitted only for the local area network. So that means inside the university's facilities. For example, if you access this outside from the universities that has no communication or tunneling to the server, so it's not accessible. Secondly, you are not logged in. Okay, maybe that particular URL or web address is just for known user or registered user or authenticated user. So this is the meaning of the access control. If you know the structure of the website, okay, we have actually it's the same like a personal computer where we have all of these folders and everything, but all of these folders need to have a IP addresses or also the domain name system or DNS inside the domain name server. Okay, so that is how it works. Okay, I hope you understand this, because this is about the web technology. Okay, the client and server. Please read a client and server. Okay, please read what is the meaning of client and what the meaning of server and how the web application work, so that you know what I'm talking about. The structure of this a website. Okay. Before we are discussing about this security element or security issue, the fundamental things that you need to know is actually, to be honest, you need to know how the data communication network works, okay, and how the web technology work, especially the client and server technology. Okay, understand that, and then you know what it is all about. Okay, handling user input. Input validation is the most common solution. Okay, and then, okay, there is one more thing. Maybe there is a capture character. Okay, you can see if you are using a login, and then you need to put capture. So this is the example for an extra validation. Okay, this is the types of input. Arbitrary tags like blog posts, cookies, hidden form field, parameters, HTTP header fields like user agent. So, this is the scripting, the technical stuff. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. There is few changes. Okay, sorry for the disruption. I guess I want to start back with the type of input. It can be any text, it can be cookies, it can be hidden form fields. Okay, hidden form fields, if you do a development of a web page using form, you know about this. We try to send something that user don't know, and then the parameters came inside form also, and we have values of the parameters that need to be sent from client to the server, and HTTP header fields like user agent. So this is actually headers. Headers means on top of the page of your web page, or whatever configuration that you use using development, different programming language, using a different scripting, using a different headers implementation. So this is actually all of the information that you see directly or you not seeing when you are using web application. So the first one is we can use a reject known bad, and also call a blacklisting. So if the input like XSS cross-site scripting, for example, if maybe you have a line of text that have a security issue, you may put inside your defense mechanism, and you identify as a bad inputs, and then you straight away give an alert, or maybe you reject or discard or cut off the communication. So that means the client and server, the communication is not established, or maybe been blocked by the server. It depends on your implementation or mechanism. And inside of reject the bad, for the good one, we just accept it. We call it as a whitelisting. Okay, maybe we can accept a good word, possible a non-malicious content to the server. Okay, sanitization. Okay, render dangerous input harmless. Okay, it is difficult if several kinds of data may be present within an item of input. So sanitization, how we want to implement this sanitization? This is different between blacklisting and whitelisting. We determine, for example, the percentage of the problem. So this is need to be deployed by some algorithm, a few code, maybe a few subroutine or function that can handle this. So it takes your space, it takes your speed, or it takes your bandwidth of your communication, but this is for the security purpose. And then we have boundary validation, where boundary validation is better. Okay, let's see what is the boundary validation. Okay, boundary validation is a method used to validate input coming in form of untreated sources into trusted sources. Okay, it's actually untrusted sources, I think. A simple example of boundary validation, and the validation are given by user into an application. Okay, this graphic will tell you, what is the boundary validation. The untrusted side, that means outside of the server, and trusted is normally inside of the server. We provide this boundary validation. Boundary validation is a function, is a program, is a tool, is maybe an external third-party application that use to check the programming language before, to check the data that will be used to the source code or programming language. Okay, we have a few functions. For example, in this example, okay, we only have 1, okay, 2, and 3 programming language, but only this, sorry, okay, only this is being handled by boundary validation. Okay, from this example, it's not secure. What you need to do is, for the boundary validation, okay, you should add, sorry, okay, boundary validation before, okay, I put it BV and BV. So inside of the internal function, you also attach the boundary validation. So what you need to understand is when you are developing a web page, for example, inside the headers, you can put this calling function to the for the boundary validation. How am I going to say? It's actually a program or a subroutine or a function or a third-party application that use as a boundary validation to check whether the untrusted input is being validated before it goes to the trusted page. Hold on. So that is a boundary validation, and then we continue with safe data handling. Okay, safe data handling, code that can't be fooled by malicious data, SQL parameterized query. So this is how we're going to defend in SQL injection. Okay, you need to use the parameterized queries. Parameterized queries is instead of a normal data, we are using parameter to handle the queries. Okay, and then not passing user input to OS command line, and make sure and all of this thing is effective when it can be applied. Okay, the safe data handling, I guess I will provide a textbook on this thing, so maybe you can read it. Semantic check. Okay, some malicious input is identical to valid input, such as changing an account number to another customer number. Data must be validated in context. Does this account number being to the current login user or whatever it is? So semantic check means cross validation between information of the users and information of the content of the users. For example, is the IC number is belong to this bank account number. So this, we call it a semantic check. It's a cross check actually. So the difficulties with simple input validation is data coming from user is bad or untrusted. Okay, whether it is from a legitimate users, but the data is still bad and untrusted. The server-side application is good and trusted. Many different type of input with different filtering requirement. Apps may change several processing steps together. Data may be harmless at one stage, but they transform into harmful data in another stage. So this is the possible of problem. Okay, when talking about this, okay, that is why when the boundary validation that I mentioned earlier, so you need to add each of the internal function with the boundary validation. This is what happened when you just put a simple validation at the instant stage or the first stage, but it can be transformed into harmful data for another stage, right? So this one, okay, I already talked about it. All right, this one, many different types of input with different filtering requirement. Okay, after all of this filtering requirement, so the data that need to be input to the web application somehow being modified or changing. So from it is seems look very good and nice, and it can be changed into bad or untrusted. Okay, and also this one, okay, apps may change several process step together. So it's maybe it have a bugs, we don't know, a runtime error from the apps themselves that make the process of checking for the security is being difficult and being misidentification. So that means all of this is the issue where we don't know. Okay, it's actually we don't know whether it is good or bad. So that is the difficulties with simple input validation. So this is the boundary validation. Okay, okay, you may read it. I already explained about the boundaries validation. Okay, this is the example. Okay, the step example for the boundary validation. Okay, you may read it. Okay, filtering problem. Okay, filtering problem. It can check the content. Okay, or it can check the source code. You see, this is the security mechanism try to filtering a script. Okay, but the attackers or the hackers, okay, put this. So this is inside the XML where we can customize our HTML so that it can work with the same thing. So that is the problem with the filtering. We don't actually fully utilize filtering all of the code, right? Okay, multi-step validation. Okay, app first remove, then remove, and attacker send this. So this is not being filtered. Okay, this is not being filtered, so it can bypass of the security. Okay, canonicalization. Okay, canonicalization ni is actually a blank space is actually a %20. Okay, apostrophe is %27. Okay, percent is %25. So what is this? This is actually the character replacement. Okay, character replacement. If you know the URL actually cannot be a blank space, so it should have a character. Okay. Okay. The block apostrophes, for example, %27. Okay, this one. Okay, but URL decoded twice by mistake. This one become a %27. So we don't know what we are filtering. So that is the problem with canonicalization. Okay, canonicalization ni benda-benda yang digantikan lah daripada persen 20% apa persen ampersand 27. Okay, you may take a look at this. All right, and then handling the attackers, we have handling errors, maintaining audit log, alerting administrators, and reacting to attacks. So handling errors, how? Okay, have you ever see the 404 errors when the page is not available? So that is the example of handling errors. Maintaining audit log. Maintaining audit log is you can see a log inside your server. So log means the activity, accessibility activities inside the server. Okay. Alerting administrator. So we have an application, a program, a function, okay, that identifies all of these malicious and then try to alert with the administrators by sending information through email, SMS, or whatever mechanism that you are using, and reacting to attacks. Reacting to attacks, it's depend on your control mechanism or security mechanism. If you're employing reacting attacks, it's such a when the attacking happen, it's automatically a reply to the attack. Okay, so this is the explanation of log and whatever it is alerting the administrators. Okay, firewall. Okay, web app firewalls can detect generic attack, but not subtle ones that are specific to your app. Most effective security control integrated with apps input validation mechanism. Check for valid values for your parameters. Okay, we're going to discuss this on chapter 6. This actually the firewall is something like, okay, this is sorry. Okay, outside. Okay, and then we have this wall, and then this is your server. So what they filtered this is a firewall by blocking, okay, filtering, okay, blocking of filtering what? Content, okay, URL, okay, few, it's not few, words or whatever it is, right? Okay, that is a firewall. Okay, that's it for chapter 1 and chapter 2. The introduction and method of confirmation.